Hello, pro wrestling fans. My name is Walker Stewart. I'm alongside the professor of pro wrestling, Chris Charlton, and welcome to the official NJPW English podcast. Chris, yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
A lot has been happening, and a lot continues to be happening. Best of the Super Junior 33 just wrapped up. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get into Dominion season, but a lot going on. Some cultural shifts in the sport of professional wrestling.
True. Do you want to know, like, the people tune in to this podcast maybe hoping for some behind the scenes gossip, big office politics and things like that. Look behind the scenes that you never get, just by watching the in-ring product. I tell you, there is massive strife happening this morning in the NJPW towers. Because the merch department have lost all their staplers, and there is a rumor going around that somebody is swiping all the staplers, and we have a few potential culprits.
I don't really know what the merchandise department needs that many staplers for. They probably just share, right?
Well, true, but it turns out everybody has their own stapler over there. I don't know. You're even more paperless than me. I have like a notebook, physical notebook I write my notes in. And I like to keep a physical to-do list because I'm ADD addled, and otherwise I'll get distracted. But that's one piece of paper. I've never felt... So here's my question to you as a Zoomer walker. Have you ever felt the need to staple anything in your life? Have you ever used a staple gun?
I have. I've put lights up with a staple gun before in my house, which is incredibly unsafe.
I don't think that's a good idea.
I'm not condoning it, but I did it. That's for sure.
Right.
I haven't stapled something since high school, which was 6 months ago for me. So, it's just not in my blood. It's not in my generation. We like PDFs. We use email.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell you probably who has used a staple gun or two in his life.
Yeah?
Yeah, probably the outstanding achievement for BOSJ winner Jun Kasai.
Ah, yes, the best of the Super Junior tournament has come and gone. 14 nights of hot in-ring action, Chris. And who did you say won that most outstanding performance award? It had to be a New Japan Pro wrestler.
Well, it would no. I mean, his. Okay, how dare you? First of all, denigrate Jun Kasai. I mean, Daiki Nagai won Fighting Spirit, which was, I think everybody knew that was a clear-cut call, especially after the match with Kosei Fujita, which has to be one of the matches of the tournament. Certainly, Robbie X was a great pick for best technique. But yeah, I mean, overall performance, I think if you were looking at an MVP sort of standpoint, over the course of this tournament, over the league phase, and, whether Jun Kasai is your personal, cup of tea, the hardcore style is your cup of tea or not. I mean, you have to say somebody that had such a well-defined, aura, as the kids say, and vibe throughout the tournament and won a lot of fans over the course of the tournament. Yeah, I mean, Jun Kasai was a really solid pick for MVP.
Yeah, I absolutely have to agree with that point. You and I were talking just before we went on the air for the final night back in Ibarra Wave Arena. We'll talk about that final a little bit in a moment. And we were talking about, kind of this legacy that Jun Kasai has built despite, pro wrestling freedoms, where Jun Kasai mainly, competes, is not exactly the largest wrestling organization in the world, or not even the largest in Japan, certainly. And, Jun Kasai has everyone on his feet, constant interaction, constant engagement. And I think that, some of the smaller towns, maybe the less hot towns when it comes to New Japan action that we hit on the series, were very lively for Jun Kasai. And I think that shocked a lot of people. But this was a tournament with a lot of outsiders, Chris. It wasn't just Jun Kasai. We had Hyo from Dragon Gate and his puppet. much to your chagrin.
Right.
We had Daisuke Sasaki and his puppets in Damnation TA. There was just a lot going on within the Best of the Super Junior space, but there can only be one Best of the Super Junior, and it was the final match back in Ibarra Wave Arena just a few days ago as of this recording. Kosei Fujita and Yo, the rematch that the world is talking about now, and a very different result the second time for Yo, the third time the charm in Best of the Super Junior overall.
I think, we said, or this was a sort of big part of the story of the match, and what we were talking about during the match was like these are guys who are definitive in their sort of, I guess their own nature. They're very solid and convinced of themselves, and might not necessarily be for everybody. And I think like the nature of the final being what the final was sparked a lot of debate. And I think the match itself has sparked a lot of debate. I saw Dave Meltzer liked it a great deal. I think that this was the second time, I think, for me this year where there was considerable debate going into the match, and where I think even you and I together might have been divided or had different opinions going into the match. And after the match, it was a different vibe. And I think the first time that happened this year was Hiroshi Tanahashi's final match. I think there was a lot of debate going into that, whether Kazuchika Okada versus Hiroshi Tanahashi, as landmark a rivalry as that was, and as key as that was to both men, could it have been a certain other potential matchup? I think there was a lot of debate going into that, and after the match, it was so clear, through what happened in the match itself to what happened afterwards, and everything surrounding it. It became so clear that was the absolute best match to end Hiroshi Tanahashi's career, right? In the Tokyo Dome, January 4th. And I think it's the same here, to where Yo and Kosei Fujita, the same match run back for the second year in a row. There's a wide range of different opinions you can have on that. And I think certainly my opinion, having seen the match, the atmosphere of that match, which was phenomenal, and everything that's happened afterwards, including the press conference we had yesterday, convinced me that there could have been no better final for Best of the Super Junior 33.
Yeah, that match is one that you and I had a very unique experience on, more unique than most, I'd say. But we shared that experience with nearly 4,000 other people. And that experience inside that building, I haven't been able to watch it back on NJPW World, but I'll tell you, like, there was nothing like that live reaction, man. Like, and you and I have had these conversations before, this idea of a crowd really, turning a match into just a different spectacle. And I'll go as far as to talk about one of the last finals that we had in the tournament, Evil versus Kinosuke Takeshita, certainly being something of that variety in G135 last year. Yo and Kosei Fujita just had people ripping and roaring all throughout Ota, man. There was nothing else like it. It definitely gave me that feeling of, when pro wrestling is good, there's nothing better than it. And that's certainly the vibe that I left with after the fact, and Yo with the victory, third time's the charm. I think Yo is kind of reverted to this position that I think a lot of New Japan fans find, a young lion even like Daiki Nagai to be in. Just want to see him succeed. You see someone fail and fail and fail, and I think that's, that's very much the Japanese wrestling way of life. That's definitely the young lion system that Yo came through. You fail, you have your massive overcoming of the odds, and that's what Yo managed to do, in one-on-one action against Fujita. I really have to wonder, Chris, what comes next for Kosei Fujita, and if there is any shift at all in approach to competition, in personality and in reception. I mean, Fujita is nowhere on this Dominion card we're going to talk about sometime soon, June 14th. Like, I think there's a lot of questions I have to raise there.
Okay, so I have takes.
Please.
So I mean, I think first of all, I mean, you look at the success and the unqualified success in that final, 3,969. So I mean, like, when you look at that, was close to 1,000 more than the same match drew this time last year. So it says how much people were invested and wanted to see Yo win. And a good deal of those tickets were moving the Friday night, the Saturday before the final on the Sunday.
Right.
And so it showed the investment that people had in Yo. But I think one of the reasons why I think this was the absolute best final that you could have had if you sort of drew up all the different permutations before we got into this conversation, this tournament rather. This was, yes, it was a match that was about Yo finally winning a Best of the Super Junior tournament for, third time lucky after, 14 years in the business. The sort of, we've dressed him as, being a nearly man through the bulk of his career. There's a lot of the sort of chaos nature of that, and Hiroki Goto being a part of that final celebration, Yoshihashi being a part of that final celebration, got very symbolic in themselves, people who were deemed nearly men for a long, very, very long duration of their career and finally found a great success. And Yo finally sort of tapping into that, meant a lot. It also meant a lot for Kosei Fujita. And I think this was a match that, to me, cemented the fact right now, and everything can change. I have to couch my grandiose statements, Walker, as you know, because I'm almost universally, sometimes, occasionally, every now and then, proven wrong. This match, to me, cemented the fact that if I look all across New Japan Pro Wrestling, heavyweight and junior, Kosei Fujita's the guy. And I think what sort of tapped into me at that point was when we sort of started talking about, and it was sort of in an early phase of this matchup, where you look at it and you go, it was profoundly, you look at that final and you see Kosei Fujita and Yo, and in the early sort of part of that matchup, I was thinking, I am seeing in so many ways Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Yuji Nagata. The G1 2007 final. Right? And it was maybe one thing, relative recency bias in my head, because I just wrote about it. We're doing a series of G1 retrospectives right now. But in terms of different results, Tanahashi beat the veteran Yuji Nagata that night, won his first G1. Fujita has already won his first BOSJ. I'm sure there'll be several more. I have a suspicion, in the back of my mind, because I'm seeing Fujita grow physically as well as mentally in terms of stature as well. It wouldn't surprise me at 24 years old, Walker, 10 years from now, could be headlining Tokyo Domes, be it as a junior or as a heavyweight, frankly.
Wow.
But in terms of what you had in that matchup with Tanahashi and Nagata, a divided crowd, certainly, but one that was predominantly for the veteran figure, and was, in Yuji Nagata, one of the last sort of direct people who were directly taught by Antonio Inoki. Yuji Nagata sort of represented the sense of strong style, the sort of vestiges of Inokiism. Inokiism, what people call Inokiism, was so immensely wrapped up in Yuji Nagata's rise to the top, his reign at the top. And then you had someone from underneath, Tanahashi famously saying strong style is a curse, right? That's right. A famous line of his. But wanting to present something new and different to this figure that had retired, moved on from the pro wrestling landscape. And so you had a fan base that was immensely invested in Yuji Nagata, right? Because he represented everything that fan base got into pro wrestling about, loved pro wrestling for. And you have Hiroshi Tanahashi saying, I don't want to necessarily erase that, but I want to present something new. And that, to me, is what Yo and Kosei Fujita is. Yo is, if we were to say Tanahashi-ism, Yo is Tanahashi-ism, right? And that isn't a negative statement. That is saying, like, that where Yo has his influences of professional wrestling, who he watched wanting to become a professional wrestler, and who has shaped, molded his in-ring style and the way he wrestles. And, sometimes offensively, because, I mean, yes, it was a lot of chaos in the terms of the move choices he made, but it was also rivals with Hiroshi Tanahashi. He was using the Bomber-Ye. He was using the Rainmaker, right? So you had all of that directly influencing his style within that matchup. And then you had Kosei Fujita, who's, the young punk, the next level above. It's not my time tonight, but I want to create something new to not replace, but surpass this. And I think like that, when we look up and down the Dominion card, Kosei Fujita is not on that card. But I think, and you will probably see it double down when we get to G1 Climax in a few weeks from now. This element of, we had a long time in New Japan. Maybe some people might say that it was too long, but I think there has been this period of who is going to be next up. And I think that who is going to be next up conversation is over now, right? It's finished because people have moved on, people have moved up. What was next is now. And the question is, okay, these guys are here. What do they make going on? What's their vision for what professional wrestling is 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, right? And to me, Fujita has that vision. Whether that's for everybody, or whether that's for everybody right now, or whether there are people that are much more, because I mean, for so many years, the people that booed Tanahashi were the guys that were, or fans that were very big fans of the old black tights, straight ahead pro wrestling style. A lot of those fans are still around today, right? And a lot of that isn't to say that it's a young guy versus old guy thing, right? Because, I mean, you had Hiroki Goto as he comes back from excursion, and in that feud with Tanahashi, you had the traditionalist fans were very, very solidly behind Hiroki Goto, the younger guy, against Tanahashi. So there's a lot of the sort of philosophical debate. But when I see guys like Kosei Fujita in this tournament, when I see guys like Yuto Ice in the heavyweight stakes, guys that have a very, very clear vision of where they want to take pro wrestling going forward, I think those are the guys to really look at and say, they might be who New Japan Pro Wrestling gets built around in the coming years.
Kosei Fujita with the Chris Charlton stamp of approval. And, I mean, you said a lot there. And I think that people are going to cherry pick certain lines and have a field day in a certain comment section or a Twitter thread somewhere. And I think just because of what we said off the bat here, Chris, this is such a divisive match that we had. I think that it's one that if you've been a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling for a long time, and you've been a fan of Yo, and you saw the rise and the fall of Chaos, so a closure that we never entirely, it never really felt like we got. For as big as Chaos was at a certain point under Kazuchika Okada, for it to just be, sucked into the Hontai main unit the way it was, it wasn't exactly, wrapped up with a bow on top in a grandiose way that people may have wanted. And, you might have gotten an element of that in this matchup. This match is going to appeal to those people. Fans who became fans maybe in the last year or two of New Japan Pro Wrestling may not fully understand, right? And understand the struggle and see the way that things have been gone, because they only have been able to witness what they've seen so far. But that's just pro wrestling, isn't it? I think you're going to get a lot of conversation about that Tanahashi Nagata comparison, but I absolutely understand the point that you're making. I have no doubt that Kosei Fujita is not just the now, the future. It's a generational guy. Is Kosei Fujita? I hadn't even floated the concept in my head of one day a potential heavyweight move. Good Lord, watch out for that division. But
well, yeah, I mean, he's 24. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
and I think that you kind of have, and there've been guys over the years, and usually, there's maybe in terms of body. I mean, even if you look at his size and his frame, he has height over, a lot of the field that you saw in Best of the Super Juniors. So it's up to him, of course. But I think if there was potential to go for it, and I'm not even saying soon, I think it would be something that he does 6 years, because 6 years from now he'll be 30. Do you know what I mean? And I think that is the thing with Kosei Fujita, where I don't think he's won his last Best of the Super Junior trophy. Certainly I think there is so much more for him to do in that division, cheaply the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. I think he has a long time to go, and it is by far not over yet, and I think the same goes for the guy who's the same age as Daiki Nagai, right? But Daiki Nagai just sort of starting that climb. So there's so much to go there, and Yo shows the value of tenacity and plugging away and still going at it, and the fact that he had 4,000 people entirely just behind him, and just it was so honestly, I think it was one of the loudest sounds I've heard in my headset. Over the course of my career, for Yo to do it, it really shows how strongly people are invested in him and appreciate him and appreciate everything that he's done. A fantastic wrestler. But to circle back to that sort of Tanahashi point, I think that was some of the comments Yo made during his press conference yesterday, and he kind of feels the presence of the ace of the century, or the 1 in 100 years. Yo sort of coined his 1 in 100 kilos at this point, but Yo saying, with that in mind, it means a lot for me to potentially be the 100th IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, which segues us nicely, because that's now the semi-main event at Dominion coming up Sunday.
Yeah, we have a full card release for Dominion 2026 coming up June 14th. It'll be live in English on NJPW World, a 9-match card. And, we can skip straight into the Junior Heavyweight Championship conversation while we're there, Chris. It was after the Best of the Super Junior victory for Yo. Yo barely gets, a couple of phrases out, a couple of points, if you will. And then right next to us, right through ringside, comes Sho with an attack. Here comes Doki. Oh, my God. I can't believe this is happening. And now here we have it. Yo versus Doki for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. You and I were right there on the call back on the road to Sakata Genesis the last time these two wrestled in a singles capacity, and it was for the junior title. And I think a lot of people in this matchup coming up will be asking the same question we asked back in Ibarra Wave Arena for the Best of the Super Junior final. What has changed for Yo to become the junior heavyweight champion now, when he hasn't been able to do it the last 6 attempts of his career?
Yeah, so 3 is a lucky number in some cultures. 7 is a lucky number in other cultures. So certainly 3rd time was the charm for Yo to win BOSJ in terms of his finals. And we'll see whether it's lucky number 7 for him to come away with the junior heavyweight championship as well. I think there are, there will be voices. And I think, I voiced the same thing going into the final. Well, if Yo doesn't win the BOSJ final, if he doesn't win the trophy this year, then would he ever get back in that mix ever again? And I think, probably there will be similar speculation here. If he doesn't beat Doki, then A, when can he? And B, who really can when Doki is so heavily protected by the people around him, and of course it's never just Doki. It will be the cast of thousands, and how Yo is able to counteract that is obviously going to be key. Came very, very close to counteracting it in Korakuen Hall, the sort of fighting evil with evil, so to speak. And of course, he's going to have a lot of curveballs for the champion, but it's always a difficult uphill task with House of Torture. And I think you could, if we dot around elsewhere on that card, you could ask the same questions of Aaron Wolf earlier in the night.
I think that if luck strikes my way, Chris, Aaron Wolf will dispose of the entire house before we even get to our semi-main event.
Well, hopefully.
Aaron Wolf and Ren Narita. Fifth match on the card for the Never Openweight Championship. It is a rematch from Osaka, February at the New Beginning event. And Aaron Wolf walked in, the new Never Openweight champion, looked for his first title defense. And, well, right around the time we started talking about how difficult first championship defenses are for anyone, especially a man who had debuted 1 month prior in the Tokyo Dome, of all places. Ren Narita had the match wrapped up, but it wasn't just Ren Narita. It was the entire clown car of House of Torture that has kept Ren Narita the Never Openweight champion ever since.
Yeah, so there has to be some way and there has to be some plan, I think, for Aaron Wolf to sort of deal with this. It's it's dominated this first sort of 6 months of his career, and I think there is something now where Wolf feels that, well, if I'm going to really stand on the start line, I think if he can put away Ren Narita, if he can be never champion again, it would put a full stop to this House of Torture thing. And he could go, okay, right, now I can get cracking. If it goes the other way, and if Aaron Wolf, again gets jumped by the clown car and doesn't have an answer to it, then, people will start asking a lot of questions, right? Because it isn't, okay, first night in the business, first week in the business, first month in the business. It starts becoming a paler and paler, not excuse, but it starts to carry less water every time you start to say it. So obviously, I think Wolf knows that the importance of being able to put away Ren Narita here. But there is a lot of people he's going to need backup. I think in that sense, I'm very, very much certain. I don't think that he can deal with it alone, because I don't think anybody can really deal with all those people alone. There has to be some backup plan, and I hope there is for Aaron Wolf.
Well, Aaron Wolf made a couple of friends on his, 1 or 2 appearances in the Best of the Super Junior Tour. Where's Jun Kasai when you need him?
Hey, I was all in on, I really hope we see an Aaron Wolf Boltin Oleg team somewhere down the line for World Tag League. I think that would be awesome. But my second place hope would be Aaron Wolf and Jun Kasai in World Tag League. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be awesome.
They were teaming up well. They seem to obviously be fond of one another. There was very cute pictures being taken. Yeah, man. I think he would fix everybody right up, Jun Kasai.
Yeah, you do have to wonder. You think about the cast of individuals that are in House of Torture. There's men that you see, quite often in your Yujiro Takahashis, your Dick Togos. Then there's men that they make the brief appearances like Don Fale and Chase Owens, and you never know when. Whether it's Ren Narita or Doki or Evil still flying people in on the dime, I don't know. But whenever members of House of Torture are coming around, Aaron Wolf doesn't know at any point in time where they are, how many there may be. Good Lord, remember what happened in Osaka, Joe, a year or 2 ago, where we found a couple new members of House of Torture, right?
There are wild swings for House of Torture. House of Torture things tend to happen in Osaka Joe Hall one way or the other.
Yeah.
If you traced it back to 2020 when Evil won the double IWGP championships, then before House of Torture, but defected to Bullet Club, and that was when we saw Dick Togo in there pulling the strings, literally around the throat of Tetsuya Naito, as I recall. From that, and then you go, if you think to 2 years ago, we had that lumberjack match with Jon Moxley, and it felt like finally vanquishing Evil. Did Jon Moxley and come away with the IWGP World Heavyweight title, to then last year, where it felt like House of Torture were at their lowest ebb, and mainly we might be able to snub them out. And here comes like all their massive acquisitions that they made through Don Fale and through Chase Owens, through Sonata, and then through Doki as well. So yeah, for one thing or another, for one reason or another, there seems to be a lot of Dominion significance to House of Torture, and we'll see whether that's a good or a bad omen for them and for everybody else.
Well, continuing on the House of Torture train, we go to the beginning of our card overall, Chris. The NJPW World Television Championship has still not been located, as far as I can understand. Konosuke Takeshita made a special appearance yesterday, as of this recording, on the NJPW versus DDT event. Konosuke Takeshita arrived with his AEW title in hand, no World TV title, said that he still has no idea where it is after his championship defense against Chase Owens, and then who would reveal himself to be the most well-dressed man in the building back in Fukuoka. Sonata laying out a challenge for that TV title, and you have to imagine that championship was somewhere inside that black bag Sonata showed at ringside.
Yeah, so I mean, there's just going to be an awful lot of mystery, circulating around the physical whereabouts of that TV championship. But around Sonata himself, always a very mysterious fellow. You never quite know what's going on inside of his head. House of Torture, Sonata, but we assume so, right? Certainly it seemed as if he and Chase Owens, the fix was in at Dontaku when it came to where that title was misplaced perhaps by Chase and one Gino Gambino. I think they were in on the whole shebang as well. But Sonata, apparently has possession of that TV title. We'll see whether he has legal possession of it coming out of Dominion. But I'm really interested in seeing, what the next sort of chapter is for Sonata. I mean, he's always, in one way or the other, he's constantly reinventing himself, Walker.
Right. It's interesting to talk about Sonata and, the way that it felt like left New Japan for the time being. I know it was announced indefinite leave of Sonata, but a lot of mystery was surrounding that. And, social media posts along the lines of goodbye New Japan, and it's like, what's going on here? Where's Sonata going? I remember you saw the rumors and these theories and fan ideas of Sonata, going to certain black and green brands here in Japan, and Sonata's just one that you never really know what he's gonna pull out. You have to imagine what his ring shape's going to be walking in, or really question it. And I think that Takeshita is going to be a hell of a first challenge back for Sonata, and what's going to be 6 months of having been out of in-ring competition, right? So, a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, and Sonata is always a guy that tends to, I think, go long or wrestle long in his matches. And that is a difficult proposition to get things done inside of 15 minutes. But he's so unpredictable that I think, it could be a trap being set for Takeshita. I think this is probably the best chance for someone to beat Takeshita in under 15. And you'd have to wonder, as you alluded to, Forbidden Door is going to be around the corner at the end of the month. And what's to say? If Sonata beats Konosuke Takeshita for the World TV title at Dominion. Surely that pushes you to the top of the line of the AEW International Championship stakes as well. It's something certainly to put out there. But I think while as we're bouncing around, so we go from House of Torture to House of Torture to enigmatic to enigmatic, and this Jake Lee and El Phantasmo no disqualification match coming up on Sunday.
Yep, no DQ, no time limit. It was Jake Lee that hit a face break shot on El Phantasmo, and a little steel chair action involved. It was Phantasmo's first match back in New Japan around 3 months or so. And Jake Lee made very quick work on that end to make sure that El Phantasmo wouldn't do much talking. But El Phantasmo had a lot to say throughout this challenge and post-match comments to Jake Lee for a no DQ match and a very last-minute addition to the Dominion card.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think it's going to be interesting. Sonata, of course, had been gone since January. We hadn't seen El Phantasmo since March. And, I think ELP's post-match comments in Ota were very revealing in terms of where he had been. Obviously, I think when we saw him in the ring before he got hit with a faceback shot with a steel chair, certainly after that wasn't looking too great. But I think when we saw him physically, he was looking the best we've seen him in a long time, right? It really put together, and I think LP talking backstage about the lifestyle changes that he's made over the last few months, kind of really admitted to physically and mentally maybe came back a little bit too soon after he won his fight with cancer. And that, there were certain things over the last little bit of time away where he's been able to get not just his head right, but his body right in terms of changing his lifestyle, in terms of changing his diet, changing, maybe, his after school activities, so to speak.
Sure.
A couple of, not so many late nights, but I mean, it's really paying off in terms of, how he's feeling physically. And I think that, really, I think was something that he wanted to showcase right until he got kicked in the mush. And that is the point of order behind why LP wants this no DQ match, to sort of set himself immediately back on the right track.
Well, if there's anything I've learned from this recent Best of the Super Junior tournament, Chris, it's that hardcore wrestling can be some of the most creative wrestling that you'll find in the sport. And Jun Kasai certainly has mastered creativity over his multiple decade career. El Phantasmo and Jake Lee, very creative individuals for very different reasons. I think Phantasmo's creativity can certainly show a lot more in the action in the ring. Jake Lee's creativity is there. We see it. But I'm very curious as to how it pans out in what will be this hardcore rules situation.
Well, in terms of sort of matches we weren't expecting to see made going into, say, this past Saturday, El Desperado, Mystico, I wouldn't have been surprised if we saw them in an IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship defense. Right. At Dominion. But as it happens, they're going to wrestle one another. And, this was an instant kind of thing where I was like, wow. Holy crap, this is a sort of a dream match for a lot of people, right? You've got icons of junior heavyweight wrestling. Two maestros, so to speak, for New Japan and CMLL. This was something where, if you remember, after they won the junior tag titles at Dontaku, Desperado and Mystico had their sit-down, their post-match comments, and Desperado said, I would really like to wrestle you in a singles match sometime soon. And Mystico said, yeah, of course. And, I kind of thought that would fall by the wayside, to be honest, because I think, Mystico, very often everybody wants to wrestle Mystico. And Mystico very often wants to wrestle everybody. And a lot of times that gets put out there in the universe. But it's so difficult in the end for, different companies and everything else to make schedules work and make things happen. But it really felt like, perhaps the champions together having the better stroke saying, no, this time let's make sure this happens. And wow, what a matchup in and of itself. And does this perhaps, affect what happens, or does the winner of this go back and sit on the monitor and have a close eye on the semi-main event later on in the evening? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. I think that's going to be the top of everyone's minds, no matter the result, for El Desperado and Mystico. I think that my personal interest in this match falls along the physical status of Mystico walking into it. Mystico was seen on crutches, all throughout Arena Mexico over the course of a few weeks or so, or at least within the last couple of weeks, I remember. And it's something that El Desperado made a comment or two about back in Best of the Super Junior post-match comments. But the real focus for Despe was the tournament at hand, right? So I'm very curious as to what Mystico's physical status is going to be like coming into it, and is this going to be an opportunity for Desperado to bounce back into where he feels he needs to be in the singles rankings? And I could easily see whether it's Yo or Doki walking away with the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title on that night. Desperado and Mystico being great ideas for challengers. But, of course, we're going to have to wait and see. Chris, it is not just the junior heavyweight division that has some special action that's heating up. It is special tag team competition that's going to be coming our way as well. And it was one of our first matches announced for the event overall. Yuya Uemura and Taichi going one-on-one, or rather two-on-two, with Ryohei Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr. And I say, one-on-one Freudian slip maybe on my end. It's really been a bit more of a singles affair, it feels like, between Uemura and Ryohei Oiwa. And I think Taichi just wants his taste of the pie.
Yeah, it seems like it, doesn't it? I mean, it seems like they were all ready to go for Uemura to issue a challenge for a special singles match, and Taichi saying, I want in, and to reassert himself. I think everybody, all four of these people know that G1 Climax is right around the corner, and they want to sort of set their stage, or really sort of plant their feet in the soil when it comes to the biggest tournament of the summer. But yeah, I mean, Uemura, Oiwa certainly have very to go back to our conversation from earlier on with Kosei Fujita and Yo, but have their own potential visions for what they want a new era in professional wrestling to be, and that's what sort of defined their great match they had in the G1 in Korakuen last summer. And so that's a big deal when it comes to that. I think when you add Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. to the mix, obviously Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. together, 3 times IWGP Tag Team Champions, and they had their sort of meeting in the New Japan Cup this last year, but maybe there was something where not quite, it was a very emotional match in the New Japan Cup, but maybe they I think something in the two of them want a little bit of added closure to Dangerous Tekkers from back in the day. And yeah, I mean, you look at that and you go, what a great, tag division that we have. What a great tag match that we have. What a great tag division that we have here in New Japan Pro Wrestling. There was, someone, and I don't know you, so I'm sorry, but, I saw a comment on social media going into the semifinals of Best of the Super Juniors this year, where it said it shows how strong tag team wrestling is in New Japan Pro Wrestling, that the 2 semifinals of a singles junior heavyweight champion tournament were 2 tag teams against one another. So that sort of really shows the sort of the length, the breadth, and the depth of tag team wrestling. And this is another one where all 4 of those as individuals are ones to watch as potential winners of a G1 Climax, or potential entrants at this point. But again, is this a case where the winners of this team go back, watch their monitors for the IWGP Tag Team Championship match to come later in the evening?
That's a phenomenal question. As much as it has felt like a singles affair, it wouldn't shock me at all to see, if Taichi and Yuya Uemura walk away with the win. Taichi, managing to slip himself into another situation. I'd love to see it. And I'd love to see it against either one of the teams that could walk away with the IWGP Gold. It is Oscar and Ice looking for their 7th defense. The Knockout Brothers already, one of the most successful tag team champions in New Japan Pro Wrestling history. And that is some deep, deep history going all the way back, Chris. Oscar and Ice go 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 with Great-O-Khan and Henare, two men who never exactly lost the IWGP Tag Team Championship. Henare was injured back in December 2024 and during World Tag League that year, and Great-O-Khan and Henare were forced to vacate the titles. O-Khan, if you remember, a very interesting situation when that happened, by the way, when we crowned new IWGP Tag Team Champions in a three-way match at Wrestle Dynasty involving the Young Bucks and LIJ, right? Like it was just it was a mess, and essentially O-Khan and Henare believe they did not exactly get their fair due of a rematch, and that comes here tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, Henare has said that, well, KOB really, over the course of this, the 6 defenses that they've had, they've only beaten one, maybe two truly cemented tag teams, those being Bishamon and potentially GOA over in America. And Ice has said, okay, if that's the case, is Great-O-Khan and Henare really a cemented tag team? The thing is with that, we don't really know, because I think that team was kind of cut off at the knees almost literally. When Henare was put on the shelf for so long, but they've shown how cemented they've been as a team, as a duo, by just having success as a trio alongside Will Ospreay, the never openweight 6-man tag team champions. It's interesting. There'll be an interview coming up with Ice. Literally, as we're talking now, it's going to be up in the next half an hour, so everybody's already seen it by the time this comes out. But Ice has a very in-depth sort of conversation of his own wrestling philosophy. But really, to him, this match is about he and Henare. And Henare, of course, has known Oscar and Ice since they were in the New Zealand dojo. And Ice has an affinity with Henare. Really, I mean, certainly they've had, both Henare and Ice have had to fight for survival, so to speak, at different points in their life. But Ice saying, well, I kind of chose that lifestyle, for better or for worse, for a certain period in my life, whereas Henare grew up in it, had to sort of fight to get by at different stages in his life, and both kind of feel that they were saved by professional wrestling from a certain dangerous walk of life. So there's a lot to tie those two together. So it kind of becomes the question that we have had so often with Oscar and Ice's title defenses, whether it was Ice homing in on Yuya Uemura, whether it was Ice homing in on Ryohei Oiwa, here Ice homing in on Henare. Are they looking past Great-O-Khan, and is this a situation where O-Khan could swoop in and perhaps take the championship away from Knockout Brothers, and maybe is that the best hope for United Empire in this situation?
We've seen it a couple of times, Chris, where people have underestimated Great-O-Khan in tournament settings and tag team settings, and sometimes Great-O-Khan does that to himself, and you have to question whether it's intentional or not. But much the way we talked about Sonata earlier on, it's like, what the hell do you really know about this guy, right? Great-O-Khan is very, very difficult to read. You could put Great-O-Khan in that yo category, like we've talked about all throughout the Best of the Super Junior portion of this event. So, Great-O-Khan's not one that you exactly want to underestimate, but it has kind of been a bit of a trend in Knockout Brothers championship matches. Yuto Ice picks a fight with one individual in particular. When it was Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura, it was Ice and Uemura that the people were talking about. It was Yuto Ice and Ryohei Oiwa back in World Tag League and in New Year Dash conversation, right? So I really am interested as to how this match is going to go down. I think that Henare and Great-O-Khan are certainly going to be walking in with a chip on their shoulder. It's really going to be an academic match depending on which way this one swings.
Yeah, I think certainly the Knockout Brothers would be the odds makers' favourites. But Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily count out the United Empire team. And I think that at the end of the day, I mean, we sort of talked about how House of Torture has defined Aaron Wolf's beginning of 2026. I think on a broader, bigger picture in terms of 2026 in New Japan Pro Wrestling, the first half of the year has been all about Unbound Company and United Empire. So you're seeing that with this tag team match. I suppose we'll end with the main event, but before the main event, you've got that three-way match, and again, United Empire's champion Andrade El Idolo, Unbound Company's Drilla Maloney, and then the third man in that equation is Shota Umino.
Yeah, a three-way matchup means there's a lot to touch on, a lot of interweaving connection. Drilla Maloney as IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion, that's a hell of a shout, huh? I'd love to see it. It'll be Maloney's first time challenging for heavyweight gold in New Japan, if I am correct. At the very least, singles heavyweight gold. Has challenged before for like the Strong Openweight Championship in America.
Yeah.
Shota Umino has yet to win any championship in his professional wrestling career. And Andrade El Idolo just comes in and swoops up the IWGP gold in a matchup that, you very much get the feeling, Chris, wasn't exactly intended for him as far as then champion Yota Tsuji was considered. Andrade is in a very unique position where, 2 months before Andrade challenged for the Global Heavyweight Championship, nobody even imagined Andrade even being involved in any title situation in New Japan overall. An injury to Gabe Kidd happens. All right, here comes Andrade. Andrade certainly knocks it out of the park, makes a hell of an effort, and strikes gold in a literal sense. And now it's like this whole global division's been flipped on its head, where now, we have a guy making three-way matches where there haven't exactly been three-way matches in a couple of years, right? Definitely a bit of an AEW influence, seeing the three-way match stipulation come in for this match. I'm interested on your take, Chris, because I could really see this going any one of the three ways that it can go, and I think that's going to shock a lot of people no matter what.
Yeah, I think I think it could be one of those matches that ends up stealing the show. I think when you look at it, it's interesting from the point of view of, yes, Andrade El Idolo came in last minute, and killed it at Dontaku. Not only did he beat Yota Tsuji, but had a sensational match as well in the process to become the IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion. So here you have someone with a track record recently proven of being put in a spot, seeing the opportunity, getting that opportunity and taking it with both hands and producing on every level. And so it's very hard to sort of bet against Andrade El Idolo. For Drilla Maloney, I've said it countless times. I think on this podcast, I've said it on air, I've said it on the commentary desk. Every situation that you put Drilla Maloney in, he succeeds. The only position that we haven't seen him in yet is a major top flight heavyweight championship match, and now he's in this position. So I would be very surprised if he does not excel, and I wouldn't be surprised if he comes away with the championship at all. So here you have someone, with a proven track record of being thrust into situations and succeeding. Drilla Maloney hasn't been thrust into this situation just yet, but I'm very confident that he would succeed. And Shota Umino, who has been in these situations multiple times and unfortunately has not succeeded. And has had to come away with the disappointment of defeat in big match situations multiple times. So here you're in the position where, I think Shota really feels the pressure. I think that's why he threw his hat in the ring to this global championship and wants to make something for himself, because I feel, frankly, Umino feels he has to do this for himself. So the strongest... the strongest, I think, take of this is like Shota Umino feels he has to win more than the other two. But can he win is the question.
Can I give you my My only certainty coming out of this one, if I had to bet money on it, if I had to put the house on this one idea, it is this IWGP Global Heavyweight title match feels like it has Forbidden Door implications all over it. And I mean in any single direction that this championship could go. If Andrade El Idolo keeps the IWGP Global Heavyweight title into June 28th, you know that many, many men on the New Japan roster will be chomping at the bit to travel all the way to San Jose to get the IWGP title back to Japan. That's idea number one. The other ways that this goes to me, Shota Umino and Joel Maloney, those are two men who are going to want to show right out of the gate, if they become global heavyweight champion, that they are a fighting champion. That is the types of men that we're talking about here. And it wouldn't shock me at all to see either one of Umino or Maloney want to put that global heavyweight title up June 28th at Forbidden Door.
Yeah, and I mean, I sort of spoke to Joel Maloney in the last week, and one of the questions I asked him was about the sort of his decision to stay in New Japan Pro Wrestling in February, and he was very open about the fact that the opportunity to follow Clark Connors and David Finlay over to AEW was certainly somewhere that he was mulling that point over, but decided that there was a lot that he could still do here in New Japan Pro Wrestling. A lot he felt that he should do here in New Japan. So I think, certainly the opportunity is there if he comes away with the global championship. And one man who has defined the IWGP Global Championship, the first guy to win it, was David Finlay. So I think there's all sorts of sort of fantasy matchups that you could make coming out of this situation. I mean, Shota Umino has involved history with a lot of key figures in All Elite Wrestling as well. So the Forbidden Door nature of it all is definitely interesting. But I guess, of course, we're heading into Forbidden Door, so it's important to represent as global champion. And after that, we're heading into G1 Climax. And I would assume this would be the last IWGP Heavyweight Championship defense that we have before the G1 Climax. So who heads into the biggest tournament in pro wrestling as the heavyweight champion? Is it Yota Tsuji or is it Callum Newman?
That is the money question, my friend. Yota Tsuji kicked off this year with a monumental victory, a sold-out Tokyo Dome co-main event alongside the retirement of Hiroshi Tanahashi. Yota Tsuji puts down Konosuke Takeshita, wins the World Heavyweight title, wins the Global Heavyweight title, brings back the history of the V4 Heavyweight Championship, retires the Intercontinental title. Yota Tsuji made big moves right from the gate in a way that felt, all right, this guy's going to be champion for a very, very long time. And then one defense deep, Yota Tsuji loses the heavyweight championship. And not only that, but loses it to a man that, was in the heavyweight title conversation at one point in time, off the back of an exit from New Japan Pro Wrestling and a lucky strike, if you will. Callum Newman has absolutely proven to be much more than a lucky strike as the 88th heavyweight champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's a very different Callum Newman than the first time he challenged for the heavyweight title. We talked about that all throughout April and Sakura Genesis and the like. I have to wonder what's changed for Yota Tsuji. Yota Tsuji took some time away over the course of the Super Junior tournament, competed over in WXW in Germany, did some promotional work for New Japan, took the time to, hey, I lost the heavyweight, I lost the global, I'm going to reassess. And he came back looking very good, but you could say the exact same thing about Callum Newman. I think it's a coin flip as to who walks away with the belt.
I think I think what might be key for Callum Newman's sentence, and it's something that I touched on the finals broadcast, is that it really feels to me Will Ospreay has been Callum Newman's conscience over the last little bit, and there's been an ongoing war with Callum Newman and his conscience individually, and physically with Will being there at Don Taku and at Sakura Genesis, and we saw how that played out, and I think, as it came to the post-match attack at the end of Don Taku, where, he basically ordered Will Ospreay to lay out Shingo Takagi, and Will did it to placate Callum Newman. And, the fact that Will's not here, Will's not going to be at Dominion.
Right.
So does that mean that Callum Newman's conscience is effectively, that's not a factor for him? And does that make him all the stronger? Is that a situation where he is all the more willing to sort of go to the outside, to take out a chair, to take out a table, to take out a Zenjay perhaps, potentially? It's certainly, maybe there's that element of cat's away, mice will play kind of aspect. And, the question, perhaps Callum Newman feels he has even more free reign, although certainly he'll say that he has always had free reign. So it's difficult to kind of bet against Callum Newman when he has so many strings to his bow, I think, on this one, let alone the fact that, I mean, as you said, the sensational athleticism, despite being, a few weeks away and away from the ring, absolutely no ring rust whatsoever. And you see a guy doing that with ease, a tope con hilo, lands on his feet, goes, stands in the crowd in Ota, just shows, how much of second nature it's like breathing, being in a pro wrestling ring, to Callum Newman. And I think his absolute A game right now.
Chris, you brought up the Will Ospreay of it all here in this heavyweight championship match. And, to be quite honest with you, I don't think Callum Newman is going to want us to talk about Will Ospreay at all alongside his name. I think that Callum Newman won New Japan Cup without Will Ospreay, didn't he? I think that,
correct.
Callum Newman, Will Ospreay was in the building. Will Ospreay was at ringside whenever he won the heavyweight championship in Ryogoku, when he defended it back at Don Taku against Shingo Takagi. I think that Will Ospreay is going to be an odd factor in it. Whether it's the idea of, him not being there is going to cause this mental shift. The facts are the facts. The fact is that Will Ospreay is going to marry the love of his life, and Callum Newman is going to hold on to the heavyweight championship hook or by crook. And I think that would be the same whether Will was there or not, because every man has his breaking point. And it feels like every single month between Callum Newman and Will Ospreay, we've come closer and closer to seeing both of their breaking points.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think there's more to that that perhaps might play out at Forbidden Door as well. But I mean, you're right. I mean, a non-factor in this matchup, and I think a non-factor as he was in the New Japan Cup, and I think you saw Callum Newman, really at his brutal, vicious best in that final with Yuya Uemura, or that stretch of 2 nights of Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura back in March. So I think it's a very, very difficult battle for Yota Tsuji to face, and we'll see whether he can come away with that championship he lost in the Tokyo Dome.
Well, Chris, that's our Dominion card. We'll be live in Osaka Joe Hall June 14th. It'll be 4 p.m. Japanese Standard Time. Tickets are still available right now, NJPW1972.com for all your ticket information if you want to get your last-minute purchase in. If you're going to be coming to Osaka, you better be coming to Osaka Joe Hall, or, of course, you'll have the best seat in the house right here live in English on NJPW World, and that is going to be our Dominion wrap-up.
Yeah, once we get Dominion in the rearview mirror, we'll be well on the road to G1 Climax, of course. Tickets still available for the Now Arena as well in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. We want you to join us, Ticketmaster.com. And the road to G1 is always going to be an exciting one. The end of that road, Walker, July 7th, we'll be saying a fond farewell to one of the biggest junior heavyweight figures.
Right. Yep. Tiger Mask 4 will be retiring in Korakuen Hall July 7th. Still no word as to what that retirement match is going to look like or what the rest of that card could be fleshed out as. But we do know it will be live on NJPW World for those that will not be in attendance in Korakuen Hall. I, for one, am very interested to see how Tiger Mask goes out. But it's been a very lengthy, a very fruitful 31-year career for the one student of Satoru Sayama, and I'm very interested to hear what you have to say, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, 31 years for time. I mean, it's crazy to think that by a measure of not just years but decades. Tiger Mask is the longest holder of that hood, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I know there's a lot of speculation. Does Tiger Mask pass that tradition on to somebody else, or is that something that falls by the wayside? So I kind of think, you have to talk about Tiger Mask more broadly, right, in terms of what he means to all of pro wrestling, all of pop culture, really, right? Yes. I mean, here you see everything that you've kind of seen across different multimedia. I think probably the first sort of true multimedia stars is Tiger Mask in professional wrestling. I saw one thing where Will Ospreay recently, right, tweeted out, because I believe the Stormbreaker is now a move in Virtua Fighter. Yes. Did you see this?
Yes.
Right. And so Will put out the question: is this the first wrestling move that's in multiple video game franchises? And of course, I think, God bless you, Will, but Tiger suplexes.
Yeah.
If you've ever played a game by Goichi Suda, or probably most other video games, the Yakuza series, or I think you would go on, and certainly Tekken, right? I mean, if you've played King, the general crossover of it all, or the irony of King in Tekken, being Tiger Mask, right? But having been motion capped by Minoru Suzuki for the video game franchise is always a crazy little thing to note. But there is so many sort of influences across the broader pro wrestling culture, across the zeitgeist, that came from the original Tiger Mask, who was the embodiment of what was originally a manga in the 60s and 70s, and then an anime, and then, we've got the opportunity to have this real life cartoon character in a wrestling ring, is kind of wild. It's interesting. I mean, I told you I was recently reading this biography on Satoru Sayama, right?
Yes.
And Sayama never had this as his intention at all. It's interesting to think about where Sayama came into the New Japan Dojo 75, 76, and despite his more sort of diminutive size, but he was very close with Antonio Inoki, and very driven by this very, very interested in martial arts, right? The broader martial arts space. I mean, if you think 76, I know you've done the sort of voiceovers for our World Archives, but Inoki and Willem Ruska, right? The famous fight, pro wrestling versus judo, right? So that began the World Martial Arts Championship, which was, the sort of launching point to the Ali fight, to everything else, right? And I think you can have a lot of kind of conversation around Inoki and that division, that martial arts division, as a sort of launching pad for what became mixed martial arts as we know it today. Yeah. So it's interesting. Sayama was very sort of close to Inoki during that early phase when he was a very young man and a young lion, and he had that conversation with Inoki. That I kind of want to go down this line. Sayama thought at the time it would be really interesting if this martial arts became a division unto itself, and an entity unto itself within New Japan Pro Wrestling, maybe in the future apart from New Japan Pro Wrestling. And so, there's this story in this biography where Sayama has this comment out, I would like to really be involved in this. And Inoki kind of says, well, it would be great if you were the first. You know what I mean? You were the first sort of trainee to come through the Nogai Dojo system with this sort of idea of a martial arts division. So one of the great grand what ifs of that would be mixed martial arts could have been a massive thing in Japan, as early as 1980, 1981, right? And what's kind of novel, there's a cute, and I can't remember. I mean, Sayama did have a couple of fights with kickboxers in 76, 77. And then as kind of part of that, he was sort of put as the senpai figure of, and I can't remember his name. There was a guy from Brazil who was, and Brazil at the time, you might have heard of like Vale Tudo as like the sort of their sort of progenitor of different martial arts fighting styles. Vale Tudo became like a much bigger thing later down the line. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, of course, like stemming from that kind of aspect of it, right? Like the Brazilians kind of call Vale Tudo what like different parts of Europe would call pancration, which is where like Suzuki's pancrase came from, right?
Yes.
So like the different side of views of what mixed martial arts was. And there was this guy, when Inoki went over to Brazil, this Vale Tudo fighter goes up and challenges Inoki, right? And so I would really like to fight you someday. And Inoki kind of said, well, it kind of falls by the wayside. But they bring this guy into the Noge dojo to train, and he was training there for a year or so, right? And the sort of establishment dojo people, they were kind of, not bullying, not hazing, but they kept him at arm's length kind of thing, because it was kind of, who is this kid daring to challenge Antonio Inoki?
Sure.
But so for Sayame, one of his first sort of tasks as a young boy was like, you be friends with him. So he's under your care, he's under your charge. So Sayama and this Brazilian kid, they get to be good friends. And when it comes time for Sayama to go on excursion, he had every expectation of going to Brazil to learn to fight, to learn the Vale Tudo style, and that was going to be his through line into like what this martial arts division was going to be in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and completely taken aback by surprise, he gets sent to Mexico. And so everything that could have been what Tiger Mask came, and the style, that junior heavyweight style, that fantastic, all came because Sayama was sent to Mexico instead of Brazil on his excursion. And Sayama, under the care of Gran Hamada, won those matches. You know the match I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
I think 81 Alcapam, something like that. And it's like Tiger Mask and Gran Hamada versus like Babyface and who's the other? Is it Paraguayo? It might be.
It might be.
You know what? Yeah, you might. You know what I'm talking about, though. But like,
yes.
You see in that not only just stuff that's amazing now. And they were doing it, and this was 45 years ago. Phenomenal stuff. And, from there, when he comes back from excursion with this Lucha Libre style, and they put him under the Tiger Mask hood, they put him under, against some of the best in Mexico at the time, and you're sort of off to the races at that point. So, I mean, with Tiger Mask going on, with the current Tiger Mask going back to Fantastica Mania, later on this June 19th, I believe, right? That is a real sort of homecoming for him and the roots of what Tiger Mask is, as well as what Tiger Mask 4 is. I mean, it even goes the funny. I don't know if you know this story with how Mitsuharu Misawa came to be Tiger Mask. You know this one?
I don't know this story.
So Tiger Mask, Mitsuharu Misawa goes on excursion to Mexico. When Sayama eventually left New Japan Pro Wrestling, retires as Tiger Mask beforehand, right? So you have this Tiger Mask in abeyance. I don't know where the rights being where they were, but Giant Baba basically comes into possession of he can promote the Tiger Mask. Misawa gets a phone call in the middle of the night in Mexico. And this international phone call from Giant Baba, and Baba famously asks Misawa, he just goes, "Hey, do you think you can stand and balance on the ring post?" And Misawa's like, "Yeah, I guess." And the next day he gets tickets to fly back to Japan.
Oh man.
And that was sort of Baba and Misawa's sort of relationship. When Misawa eventually became the president of All Japan Pro Wrestling briefly,
Right.
He was just brought in the room. It's like, Baba was like, "You're the guy. You're the president." It's just straight drops it on him instantly.
I appreciate Baba reading him the job description. Can you? Yeah. All right. Well, here's your
Yeah,
tickets.
but I think there was, but it speaks to, I think Misawa was a great Tiger Mask, a different Tiger Mask, but really came onto his own as himself, and I think that's a separate. Somebody else can do the podcast of All Japan history and Jumbo Tsuta and everything like that. From there, the Tiger Mask kind of becomes so difficult. Misawa talked about the weight that it was and how hard it was. That here was this sort of aura, this character that was so embodied by Sayama. And okay, I'm wearing this mask, so I'm not wrestling perhaps as Misawa. I have to be Tiger Mask. I have to do this thing, or I have to do things in a certain way. Koji Kanemoto was like the third Tiger Mask, and notoriously really wasn't happy in that role, and it didn't last long, and eventually lost that mask as well, unmasked. And it now came through, to the current Tiger Mask 4, who was, trained by the original Sayama. So I think there was that kind of, through line and a little bit more comfort in there with him having that role, with him having the mask. And there were other, I think there were the other periphery tiger masks, Tiger's Mask. I don't know. There are sort of other people that are inside that oeuvre. Everyone from Minoa Man to, of course, Tiger Mask W, who is still a mystery, I believe. Walker. Yes. I don't think anybody knows who Tiger Mask W was. I think Tiger Mask having that close relationship with Sayama was what sort of brought him on and gave him that longevity. And I think you also have to sort of throw flowers in that regard to some of the people that made him over the course of that time, I think Rocky Romero, we have to sort of give a lot of credit to, right? The Black Tiger and Tiger Mask has been a thing of course for multiple years. The feud that Tiger had with the then Black Tiger, who was later revealed to be that rat bastard Rocky Romero, I think was a real key aspect to Tiger Mask 4's career. Great matches with Naomichi Marufuji as well, all in the NJPW World Archives. The two back-to-back Best of the Super Junior finals, great things to see. And now here we are, so end of an era. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows who's going to show up? I'll be there. I'll be in Korea. I'm sure a lot of people will be. I'm sure we'll be sold out for it. It's phenomenal. Him of himself, the sort of 31 years that he's had as Tiger Mask really is phenomenal to talk about. But like more broadly, culturally speaking, Tiger Mask is deeply ingrained in popular culture and very, very important. So we'll see what happens July 7th. Tiger Mask actually joked that he has one son who is training in MMA right now, and another son that wants to be a pro wrestler. So he goes, yeah. So he was pitching a three-way, and he said, "Well, maybe my wife can be the referee." So.
Well, I'll tell you this, Chris. I really appreciate hearing this this retrospective, if you will, on the not just Tiger Mask 4, but Tiger Mask overall, dating back to the original Satoru Sayama. And I for one am hopeful that the legacy of Tiger Mask continues. What I'm interested in, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this as we close out our broadcast here. Do you think that after July 7th we'll come to find more about the man who has embodied Tiger Mask, the fourth iteration, over the past 31 years?
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think that really has to be, does he take the mask off and, then is he going to take that approach to it? Or is he going to be someone like perhaps Jushin Thunder Liger, who still does a lot of publicity under that mask, still has his YouTube channel, and things like that. So there's a lot of different directions, and we often sort of speculate what happens next. Is he going to be in the office? That would be a great thing to see, Tiger mask coming to the office in his mask. I just want everybody. I have a thing. I think it would be adorable for like massive wrestlers to retire and then just bring their little laptop, sit down at the desk, and type away. Get out their little lunch boxes. That's what I'd like to see.
Well, you might get your dream. I'd love to see Tiger Mask show up to the office. How's the office going, by the way? Are we keeping that around?
We might be in a different place. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, we'll find out on the next edition of the official NJPW English podcast.
We might have to buy more staple guns. I think that's.
Oh, shoot. All right. Well, we're gonna have to up the staple budget, but this has been the official NJPW English podcast for Chris Charlton. I'm Walker Stewart. We'll see you next time with more right here, wherever you get your podcasts.